Captain Hyun Ki stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Sejong and watched the stars through the big front window. He had been flying through space for 15 years, but the sight still made him feel small and amazed. Today was supposed to be just another normal day of checking empty space for new planets or anything interesting. "Captain, I'm getting something strange on the radio," said Tae-ho from his seat at the communication station. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he tried to make the signal clearer. Hyun-ki walked over to look at the screens. "What kind of signal?" "It's not from any human ship or station. The pattern is completely different from anything we use." Tae-ho put the sound through the speakers, and strange clicking and buzzing noises filled the bridge. Dr. Yun-sol looked up from her computer where she had been reading reports about new star systems. She was the ship's language expert, and her job was to figure out how to talk to aliens if they ever found any. "Can you record it and send it to my station? I want to run it through the translation programs." "Already doing it," Tae-ho replied. "But there's a lot of it. This signal has been going for hours, maybe days. It's like someone is telling a very long story." Engineer Dongmin came onto the bridge carrying a cup of coffee. He was always fixing something on the ship, but right now everything was working fine. "Did someone say aliens? Are we finally going to meet some?" "Maybe," Hyun-ki said. "Yun-sol, how long do you need to figure out what they're saying?" Dr. Yun-sol was already working at her computer, running the alien sounds through different programs. "Give me a few hours. The computer is finding patterns in the language. It's very complex, but there are repeated words and sounds that might mean something." Dr. Su-bin, the ship's expert on alien life, came running onto the bridge when she heard the news. "This is amazing. Our first contact with another intelligent species. We need to be very careful about how we respond." "Let's figure out what they're saying first," Hyun-ki said. "Then we can worry about talking back." The hours passed slowly. The crew took turns listening to the alien transmission while Yun-sol worked on translating it. The sounds were unlike anything they had ever heard. Sometimes the aliens seemed to be singing, sometimes they made sharp clicking noises, and sometimes they spoke in low, rumbling voices. Finally, Dr. Yun-sol called everyone to gather around her station. Her face looked pale and worried. "I've translated some of it. This isn't a message to us or a greeting. It's like a history lesson or a story they're telling to each other." "What kind of story?" Hyun-ki asked. "They call themselves the Vorthak, and they're talking about a war they won a long time ago. A war against something they call..." She looked at her notes. "Humans." The bridge became very quiet. Dong-min put down his coffee cup. "Humans like us?" "That's impossible," Su-bin said. "We've never met these aliens before. We've never even left our own part of the galaxy until recently." Yun-sol shook her head. "Listen to this part I translated." She played the alien sounds, and her computer spoke the translation in a flat, mechanical voice. "The great victory over the human plague happened in the time of our ancestors. 500,000 rotations ago, we found their small blue world in the third orbit of a yellow star. They were weak and primitive, using only simple tools and fire. Our warships surrounded their planet and eliminated every trace of their kind. It was our first perfect cleansing, and it taught us how to rule the galaxy. Everyone stared at each other in shock. 500,000 years ago? Dong Min whispered. But we're humans, and we're still here. They must be talking about a different species, Subin said, but she didn't sound sure. Maybe they just used the same word for any intelligent life. Dr. Yun-Sol continued reading from her translation. They described the planet in detail. One large moon, mostly water, 7 continents. The third planet from a G-type yellow star. They even mentioned the other planets in the system. A small rocky world closest to the star, then a hot world covered in thick clouds, then the human world, then a red planet, then several gas giants. Hyun-Ki felt cold. That was exactly like their own solar system. Earth was the third planet from the sun, with 1 moon. Venus was covered in thick clouds. Mars was red. The gas giants were further out, just like the aliens described. There has to be some mistake, he said, but his voice wasn't very strong. Taeho had been quiet, but now he spoke up. Captain, I've been checking the signal's source. It's coming from the direction of the galactic center, about 15,000 light-years away, but the signal is very strong, like it's being broadcast to lots of places at once. Dr. Yun-Sol worked for another hour and translated more of the alien transmission. The more she learned, the more worried she looked. They're not just telling a story about the past. They're bragging. They tell this story to other aliens to show how powerful they are. They're proud of what they did to the humans. The aliens described their attack in detail, how their ships had blocked out the sun, how they had burned the cities and forests, how they had made sure no human escaped, even the ones who tried to hide underground or underwater. They talked about it like it was their greatest success. But if they killed all the humans 500,000 years ago, Dong Min said slowly, then how are we here? Maybe they were wrong, Subin suggested. Maybe some humans survived somehow. Dr. Yun-Sol found another part of the translation that made everyone even more worried. They're not just telling old stories. They mention that they still patrol that part of space sometimes, just to make sure nothing new grows there. They call it the dead zone, and they're proud that nothing has lived there since they cleaned it out. Hyun-Ki realized that Earth was in that dead zone the aliens talked about. If these Vorthak ever came back to check on their old victory, they would find humans living there again. They would find cities and spaceships and millions of people. We need to get this information back to Earth immediately, he said. If these aliens think they wiped out humanity once and they find out we're still alive, they'll try to finish the job. Taeho finished. The crew worked through the night to record and translate more of the alien transmission. The more they learned about the Vorthak, the more dangerous these aliens seemed. They had been conquering and destroying other species for millions of years. The attack on ancient Earth was just one of many genocides they had committed. But there was something else in the transmission that gave Hyun-Ki hope. The Vorthak talked about humans like they had been weak and primitive. They had no idea that humans could build spaceships or fight back. In their minds, The human problem had been solved forever. As the Sejong turned around to head back toward Earth as fast as possible, Hyun-ki wondered what his people had been like 500,000 years ago. Had some humans really survived that ancient attack? Had they hidden and grown strong over all those years? If so, then the Vorthak were in for a big surprise when they learned that their greatest victory hadn't been a victory at all. Admiral Jin-ho sat in the big meeting room at Earth Defense Command and read Captain Hyun-ki's report for the third time. The words didn't make any more sense now than they had the first time. Aliens claiming they had destroyed humanity 500,000 years ago. It should have been impossible, but the evidence was right there in the translated recordings. "This has to be some kind of mistake," said General Kyung-soo, hitting the table with his fist. "We're here, aren't we? Humans never went extinct." Dr. Woo Jin, the head historian, shook his head slowly. "Actually, there are some very strange things in our archaeological records from around that time period. We've always wondered about them." Admiral Jin-ho turned to look at the old man. "What kind of strange things?" "Gaps in the fossil record. Places where it looks like most life on Earth just stopped existing for thousands of years. We always thought it was natural disasters or climate changes, but—" He pulled out a thick folder of papers and photos. "Look at these blast patterns we found in rock layers. They're all from the same time period, and they don't match any natural event we know about." Dr. Miran, who studied ancient human remains, spread out more photos on the table. "There's something else. Around 500,000 years ago, there's a sudden change in human development. Before that time, humans were exactly like the aliens described, primitive, using simple stone tools. But after that date, things changed very quickly." "What do you mean?" Admiral Jin-ho asked. "Human brain size increased much faster than it should have. Tool use became more complex almost overnight in evolutionary terms. It's like something forced humans to become smarter and more capable very quickly." She pointed to pictures of ancient skull fragments. "These changes happened too fast to be natural evolution." Communications officer Tae-ho, who had come to Earth with Captain Hyun-ki, played more of the alien transmission. "There's something else the Vorthak said that we didn't notice at first. They mentioned that some humans tried to burrow deep and flee to the sky during the attack. They thought they had found and killed all of them. But what if they were wrong?" Dr. Woo Jin got excited. "That would explain the underground cities we found. There are ancient tunnel systems all over the world that we never understood. They're too old and too advanced for the humans who were supposed to be living at that time." "And what about the stories?" Dr. Miran added. "Every human culture has legends about a great disaster that almost ended the world. A time when people had to hide underground or in the sky. We always thought they were just myths." Admiral Jin-ho felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "Are you saying that the attack really happened? That humanity almost went extinct?" "It's possible," Dr. Miran said. "A small number of humans might have survived in hidden shelters or underground cities. Over 500,000 years, they could have rebuilt and repopulated the planet. The survivors would have been the smartest and most resourceful humans, which would explain why human development sped up so much." General Kyung-soo stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the busy city below. So we're the descendants of refugees, the children of people who hid from these Vorthak aliens. That's not the worst part, Taeho said quietly. I've been monitoring their transmissions since we got back. The Vorthak are still out there, and they're still active. This isn't ancient history to them. They're still conquering planets and destroying other species. He played a new recording. The alien voices sounded excited and proud as Dr. Yoon-sol's translation program converted their words. The fleet of cleansing has reported success in the Kepler sector. Another primitive species has been eliminated according to protocol. As always, we follow the perfect example set by our ancestors in the destruction of the human plague. No trace remains of their civilization. Admiral Jin Ho felt sick. They're still doing it, still destroying entire species. And they don't know we exist, Dr. Wu Jin said. To them, Earth is a dead world. They probably haven't checked on it in thousands of years. Dr. Miran pulled out a map of the galaxy. According to their transmissions, they patrol this entire region of space. Earth is right in the middle of what they consider their territory. They think they own it because they cleansed it. What happens when they find out we're still here? General Kyung-soo asked. Nobody wanted to answer that question, but they all knew. The Vorthak would try to finish what they had started 500,000 years ago. Tai-ho had been working on his computer while they talked. I have more bad news. The transmissions mention something called a rotation cycle. They send ships to check on their old conquest sites every few thousand years, just to make sure nothing new has grown there. When was the last time they checked on Earth? Admiral. Jin-ho asked. About 3,000 years ago, according to their records, which means they're due for another visit soon, Dr. Miran finished. The room became very quiet. Outside the window, normal people were going about their normal lives, not knowing that their entire species was living on borrowed time. There's one more thing, Taeho said. The transmissions aren't just coming from one place. The Vorthak have a huge empire with thousands of ships spread across the galaxy, but there's something strange about their technology. What do you mean? Admiral Jin-ho asked. Their ships and weapons don't seem to have changed much in the last 500,000 years. They keep talking about using the same methods and the same equipment that their ancestors used to attack Earth. It's like they stopped developing new technology because they think what they have is perfect. Dr. Wu Jin smiled for the first time since the meeting started. Overconfidence. They've been so successful for so long that they stopped trying to improve. While humans have been developing new technology for 500,000 years, General Kyung-soo said, understanding. Even if we started from almost nothing, we've had 500,000 years to catch up. Admiral Jin-ho looked around the table at all the worried faces. We need to find out everything we can about human history during that time period. If some of our ancestors survived the Vorthak attack, they might have left us information about these aliens. Hidden records, buried technology, anything that could help us. I'll organize archaeological teams to investigate all the ancient underground sites, Dr. Wu Jin said. And I'll have linguists work on translating more of the Vorthak transmissions, Dr. Miran added. We need to know everything about their military capabilities and their plans. As the meeting ended and people started to leave, Admiral Jin Ho stopped Tae Ho. "How long do we have before they come back to check on Earth?" Tae Ho looked at his calculations. "Based on their patrol patterns, maybe 50 years. Maybe less if something makes them suspicious." Admiral Jin Ho nodded. "Oh. Then we have 50 years to prepare for a war that started 500,000 years ago." Outside, the sun was setting over the city. People were heading home from work, planning their evenings, thinking about tomorrow. None of them knew that. Somewhere in the galaxy, aliens were still bragging about the day they had tried to wipe out every human who had ever lived. But those aliens had made one mistake. They had assumed that their victory was complete. They never imagined that the children of the survivors would grow up to be stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than the humans they had tried to destroy. The war was not over. It had just been paused for 500,000 years. Pilot Bo-Ram guided her small scout ship through the asteroid field, following coordinates that the Vorthak had mentioned in their transmissions. For 3 weeks, she had been searching this empty region of space, looking for any trace of what the aliens called their greatest victory site. "Still nothing on sensors," her co-pilot Minho said, checking the instruments for the 100th time that day. "Just rocks and empty space." Bo-Ram didn't give up easily. She had volunteered for this mission because she wanted to find proof of what had really happened to ancient Earth. The Vorthak said they destroyed everything, but they also mentioned that some humans tried to flee to the sky. Maybe they built something out here before the attack. Her ship's computer made a soft beeping sound. "Wait," Minho said, looking at his screen with surprise. "I'm getting something. It's very faint, but there's a metal signature inside that big asteroid cluster." Bo-Ram turned the ship toward the cluster. The asteroids were huge, some as big as mountains, spinning slowly through space. It could just be natural metal deposits. "No, look at this." Minho enhanced the sensor display. "The metal is arranged in straight lines and geometric patterns. That's not natural." As they flew deeper into the asteroid field, Bo-Ram saw something that made her gasp. Hidden in the shadow of the largest asteroid was a structure that clearly wasn't natural. It was made of smooth metal and crystal, built right into the rock itself. "It's a space station," she whispered. "Or maybe a colony." The structure was enormous, much bigger than any space station humans had built in modern times. Parts of it were damaged, probably from asteroid impacts over thousands of years, but most of it still looked solid and intact. "Bo-Ram," Minho said in a shaky voice, "look at the design, those symbols on the hull." She focused her ship's cameras on the symbols carved into the metal. They were definitely human writing, but in a style she had never seen before. Very old, but still recognizable as coming from Earth. "We need to get inside," Bo-Ram said. Finding a docking port took 2 hours of careful flying around the station. When they finally connected their ship and opened the airlock, stale but breathable air flowed out. The station still had power after all these years. Inside, everything was built for humans. The corridors were the right height. The controls were designed for human hands, and the gravity felt normal. But the technology was strange, More advanced than anything on modern Earth, but also somehow different, like it had developed along a completely different path. "Look at this," Minho called, from a room full of computers. The screens were still working, showing information in that same ancient human writing. Bo-Ram couldn't read the old language, but she recognized some numbers and symbols. "These look like star charts and population records. There are thousands of names listed here." They explored deeper into the station and found living quarters, workshops, and laboratories. Everything was designed for a large group of people to live in space for a very long time. In one room, they found something that made Bo-Ram's heart race. Rows and rows of cylindrical chambers, each one large enough to hold a person. "Stasis pods," Minho said, running his hand over one of the smooth metal cylinders. "Like the ones we use for long space voyages, but much more advanced." Most of the pods were empty and dark, but some still had lights blinking on their control panels. Bo-Ram checked the readings and couldn't believe what she saw. "Minho, these pods are still active. There are people inside them." "That's impossible. These have been here for hundreds of thousands of years." Bo-Ram found a control station and managed to activate one of the display screens. Even though she couldn't read the ancient writing, the numbers were clear. The pods had been running continuously for exactly 500,000 years. "We need to get a translation team up here immediately," she said, calling back to Earth. "And medical experts. I think we just found the original survivors." 3 days later, Dr. Yunha arrived with a team of doctors, linguists, and engineers. Dr. Yunha was the best stasis technology expert on Earth, and she had studied these ancient pods during the flight to the station. "The technology is incredible," she told Bo-Ram as they stood in the stasis chamber room. "Much more sophisticated than anything we can build today. These people knew they might need to sleep for a very long time." Linguist Dr. J. Wook had been working on translating the station's computer records. "I can read some of this now. This place was called Haven Station, and it was built as an emergency shelter for humans fleeing Earth. According to these logs, it was completed just months before something they call the Burning." "The Vorthak attack," Bo-Ram said. "The station was designed to hold 10,000 people in stasis, while a smaller crew of a few hundred kept watch. But something went wrong with the watch system after the first few years. The people who were supposed to stay awake went into stasis too, probably because of radiation damage or system failures." Dr. Yunha studied the readings from the active pods. "These people have been sleeping for 500,000 years, waiting for someone to wake them up. The question is, should we?" "We have to," Bo-Ram said. "They're our ancestors, the original survivors. They might know things about the Vorthak that could help us." Dr. J. Wook had found more records. According to this, there were other stations, like this one. A whole network of hidden colonies scattered through space. Haven Station was just one of dozens. "What happened to the others?" Dr. Yunha asked. "Some were destroyed by the Vorthak during the attack. Others failed over time, equipment breaking down, power running out. This might be the only one left with people still alive." The team spent another week preparing before they attempted to wake anyone up. They wanted to make sure they could provide proper medical care and that they had translators ready to communicate with people who had been asleep since before modern human civilization began. Finally, Dr. Yunha selected one of the pods that showed the strongest life signs. This person appears to be in excellent health. The stasis system has kept them in perfect condition. She began the waking process slowly and carefully. The pod's lights changed from blue to green, and warm air began flowing through the chamber. After several hours, the lid opened with a soft hiss. The man inside looked exactly like a modern human, but his clothing and equipment were completely unfamiliar. As he opened his eyes and sat up slowly, he spoke in that ancient human language. Doctor, Jae-wook translated quickly. He's asking where he is and how long he's been asleep. When Dr. Jae-wook told him it had been 500,000 years, the man's face went pale. He asked several more questions, and Dr. Jae-wook's translation made everyone feel cold. He wants to know if the Vorthak fleet is still in the solar system. He's asking if Earth survived the attack. Boram leaned forward. Tell him that Earth is safe. Tell him that humans not only survived, but that we've grown strong. Tell him that we found this place because we intercepted Vorthak transmissions and learned about the attack. The ancient human listened to the translation, and then he started crying. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief and joy. He spoke for several minutes, and Dr. Jae-wook translated with growing excitement. He says his name is Commander Jae-sung, and he was the military leader of the Earth evacuation project. He says there are detailed records in this station about Vorthak technology, weapons, and military tactics. Information that the people of his time gathered during the attack. Commander Jae-sung stood up from the stasis pod, still weak but determined. He walked to a wall panel and pressed his hand against it. Hidden compartments opened, revealing storage areas filled with weapons, equipment, and data cores. Dr. Jae-wook, translated as the ancient commander, spoke again. He says they spent years studying the Vorthak during the attack, learning everything they could about alien weaknesses and battle strategies. They were preparing for the day when humanity would be strong enough to fight back. Boram looked around at all the advanced technology and stored knowledge. They weren't just hiding from the Vorthak. They were getting ready for war. Commander Jae-sung nodded when this was translated to him. He spoke one more sentence that made everyone in the room stand up straighter. He says the war isn't over. It's just been paused for 500,000 years, and now it's time to finish it. Intelligence analyst Soon Young sat in the communications center at Earth Defense Command, listening to alien voices that made her skin crawl. For weeks, she had been monitoring Vorthak transmissions with growing alarm. The aliens were talking about something new, and it wasn't good news. Admiral Jin-ho, you need to hear this, she called across the room. The Admiral came over to her station, along with Dr. Eun-sol, who had become their expert on translating Vorthak language. Soon Young played the latest transmission. The alien voices sounded excited, almost eager. As Dr. Eun-sol's computer provided the translation, patrol scouts report unusual energy signatures in the dead zone around the third planet of system Sol 3947. The readings suggest possible primitive technology development. Fleet Command requests permission to investigate and cleanse according to ancient protocols. Admiral Jin Ho felt his blood turn cold. They know something is happening near Earth. Dr. Yunsol looked worried as she continued. Translating. There's more. They're calling it new vermin growth and saying it needs to be eliminated quickly before it can spread. How did they detect us? Admiral Jin Ho asked. Soon Young pulled up a star chart. Our deep space exploration ships have been sending radio signals back to Earth for years. The Vorthak must have picked up some of those transmissions. More alien voices joined the conversation, and the translations became even more disturbing. This is excellent timing. The young fleet commanders need to see a proper cleansing operation. We will use the same methods that brought glory to our ancestors 500,000 rotations ago. Yes, the Sol 3947 system will be a perfect training ground. Show them how completely a world can be sterilized. Admiral Jin Ho immediately called an emergency meeting. Within hours, Fleet Admiral Chang Wook had arrived from the orbital defense stations, along with General Kyung Soo, Dr. Hae Jin from the Diplomatic Corps, and Commander Jae Sung, the ancient human who had been awakened from stasis. Commander Jae Sung had learned modern human language remarkably quickly, though he still spoke with an accent that sounded old and formal. The Vorthak move exactly as they did in my time, he said, studying the translated transmissions. They are arrogant and predictable. How long do we have? Fleet Admiral Chang Wook asked. Soon Young checked her calculations. Based on their transmission patterns and the distances involved, I estimate their scout fleet will reach the outer edge of our solar system in about 6 months. The main attack fleet will arrive perhaps 2 months after that. Dr. Hae Jin leaned forward. What if we try to contact them? Explain that we're intelligent beings and want to live in peace. Commander Jae Sung shook his head sadly. I watched them for 3 years during the first attack. The Vorthak do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They believe that any species they can destroy deserves to be destroyed. To them, we are not people. We are a disease that needs to be cured. Then we fight, General Kyung Soo said simply. With what? Fleet Admiral Chang Wook asked. Our entire space fleet has maybe 200 ships. According to these transmissions, the Vorthak are sending a training fleet that includes over 1,000 warships. Commander Jae Sung smiled for the first time since being awakened. You think like modern humans. But I am from the old time when humans had to learn how to fight against impossible odds. He activated a holographic display showing technical diagrams that none of them had seen before. In Haven Station and the other hidden colonies, we spent centuries developing weapons specifically designed to fight the Vorthak. We studied their ships during the attack, learned their weaknesses, and built technology to exploit those weaknesses. Dr. Eun-Sol looked at the diagrams with amazement. These weapon designs are incredibly advanced, more sophisticated than anything we have today. Because we had 500,000 years to perfect them, Commander Jae Sung explained. The people who built these were the smartest humans of their generation, and they were fighting for the survival of our entire species. Admiral Jin Ho studied the holographic weapons. Can we build these with modern technology? better than the originals. Your manufacturing capabilities are far beyond what we had in the hidden colonies. But there is something else. Commander, Jae-sung changed the display to show star charts. Haven Station was not the only colony that survived. I have been reviewing your astronomical data, and I believe there are at least 6 other hidden stations that might still be active. More sleeping humans? Dr. Hyojin asked. Not just humans, ships, weapons, entire fleets that have been waiting in stasis for the day we would need them again. Commander Jae-sung pointed to locations scattered throughout the solar system. My people were very thorough in their preparations. Fleet Admiral Chang-wook felt hope for the first time since learning about the Vorthak threat. How do we find these other stations? The same way you found Haven Station. The Vorthak mentioned destroying sky nests in their historical records. Those are the locations of the other hidden colonies. Soon Young was already working on cross-referencing the alien transmissions with star charts. I can identify probable locations within a few days. Good, Admiral Jin-ho said. Chang-wook, I want every available ship searching for these hidden stations. General Kyung-soo, start preparing our ground defenses. Dr. Hye-jin, contact every human colony and station. Tell them to prepare for war. What about the other species in the galaxy? Dr. Hye-jin asked. The Vorthak transmissions mention dozens of civilizations they've destroyed. Maybe we can find survivors who want to fight back. Commander Jae-sung looked thoughtful. In my time, we detected signals from other species that were also fleeing Vorthak attacks. Some might have survived and been hiding just like us. Soon Young had been listening to more transmissions. There's something else. The Vorthak are so confident about this attack that they're broadcasting it live to their entire empire. They want every alien under their control to watch them destroy the new vermin in the Sol system. They're making it into entertainment, General Kyung-soo said with disgust. Yes, Commander Jae-sung said, but he was smiling again. Which means every species in the galaxy will be watching when we defeat them. Admiral Jin-ho looked around the table at all the determined faces. Then we make sure we give them a good show. Over the following weeks, human ships spread out across the solar system, searching for the hidden colonies that Commander Jae-sung remembered. They found 3 more stations, each one containing sleeping humans and advanced technology from the ancient war. From these stations, they recovered weapons that could punch through Vorthak shields, ships designed to outmaneuver alien warships, and most importantly, detailed intelligence about Vorthak military tactics and weaknesses. Commander Jae-sung worked with modern human engineers to update the ancient designs with current technology. The results were frightening. Weapons that were far more powerful than anything the Vorthak had faced before. The aliens stopped developing new technology because they thought they were perfect, he explained to the engineering teams. But we never stopped learning. We never stopped preparing. For 500,000 years, human survivors have been getting ready for this day. Soon Young continued monitoring Vorthak transmissions and reported that their excitement was growing. The aliens were already celebrating their coming victory, making bets about how quickly they could sterilize Earth and planning what trophies they would take from the conquered human world. Let them be confident, Admiral Jinho said during the final strategy meeting. Confidence makes them careless. Fleet Admiral Chang Wook now commanded a force that included not just modern human ships, but also dozens of ancient warships that had been hidden in space for 500,000 years. The old ships looked different from modern vessels, but their weapons were devastating. The Vorthak think they're coming to destroy primitive humans with simple technology, he said. Instead, they're going to face the combined might of two human civilizations, the ancient survivors who learned how to fight them, and the modern humans who perfected those lessons. Commander Jae-sung stood at the window of the command center, looking out at the fleet of human ships preparing for battle. My people dreamed of this day for centuries while they slept in stasis. The day when humanity would be strong enough to make the Vorthak pay for what they did to Earth. Soon Young's voice came over the communications system. Long-range sensors are detecting the Vorthak scout fleet at the edge of the solar system. Estimate contact in 72 hours. Admiral, Jinho took a deep breath. Then it's time to show these aliens what the children of survivors can do. War Master Theklon stood on the command bridge of his flagship and watched the small blue planet grow larger on the main screen. This was going to be easy. Another primitive world to cleanse, another victory to add to his record. The perfect way to train his young officers in the ancient arts of war. Sir, we're detecting energy signatures from the third planet, reported his sensor officer. It appears this species has developed some basic technology. Theklon wasn't concerned. Probably simple radio transmissions and chemical rockets. Nothing our ancestors didn't face 500,000 rotations ago when they cleansed this same system. Behind him, a dozen junior officers watched eagerly. This would be their first real battle, and they were excited to follow in the footsteps of their ancestors. The cleansing of the Sol system was legendary among the Vorthak, the perfect example of how to completely destroy a species. War Master, another officer called out. We're receiving a transmission from the planet. They're trying to communicate with us. Ignore it, Theklon said. Primitive species always try to talk when they see our ships. It makes no difference. Begin the approach pattern exactly as our ancestors did. But something was wrong. As the Vorthak fleet moved closer to Earth, their sensors began detecting things that didn't make sense. There were energy signatures coming from multiple locations throughout the solar system, not just the main planet. Sir, I'm reading artificial structures near the fourth planet, and there are objects moving in the asteroid belt. Theklon frowned. Moving objects? Ships, sir. Definitely artificial vessels, but the design is unfamiliar. Before Theklon could respond, his communications officer spoke up with alarm in his voice. War Master, we're being hailed on all frequencies. The transmission is coming from a ship directly ahead of us. On the main screen, a human face appeared. The alien looked remarkably similar to the ancient humans from the historical records, but something about him seemed different, more confident, more dangerous. Captain Young-soo looked directly at War Master Theklon through the transmission. This is Captain Young-soo of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are entering human space without permission. Turn around and leave immediately. The Vorthak bridge fell silent. None of them had expected this level of technology from a species they thought was primitive. Impossible, Theclon whispered. "The humans were completely destroyed 500,000 rotations ago." Captain Young-Soo smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. "We got better." Theclon recovered from his shock and activated his own transmission system. "I am War Master Theclon of the Vorthak Empire. Your species was eliminated by my ancestors. You cannot exist." "And yet here we are," Young-Soo replied. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Theclon looked around at his officers, who all seemed confused and worried. This wasn't how a cleansing operation was supposed to go. "We will finish what our ancestors started. All ships, begin the destruction pattern." The Vorthak fleet moved into their traditional attack formation, surrounding Earth just as their ancestors had done 500,000 years ago. Their plan was simple and had worked countless times before. Overwhelm the planet with superior numbers and firepower. But as they moved into position, human ships began appearing everywhere. Not just simple vessels, but sleek warships that moved with impossible speed and agility. The humans had been hiding throughout the solar system, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. "How many ships do they have?" Theclon demanded. "I'm counting over 300 vessels, sir. But that's not possible. Our intelligence said this species was primitive." Pilot Min-ho led a squadron of human fighters as they streaked toward the Vorthak formation. His ship was one of the ancient designs recovered from the hidden stations, upgraded with modern technology. It was smaller than the alien warships, but incredibly fast. "All fighters, remember what Commander Jae-sung taught us," Min-ho said over the communication system. "The Vorthak ships are big and powerful, but they're slow. Use our speed and hit their weak points." The ancient human had spent weeks training the modern pilots in tactics that had been developed during the original attack. 500,000 years of planning was about to be put to the test. War Master Theclon watched in growing alarm as human fighters swarmed around his ships like angry insects. Their weapons were different from anything in the Vorthak historical records. Beams of energy that cut through alien shields like they weren't even there. "Shields are failing on the forward destroyers," his tactical officer reported. "These weapons are cutting through our defenses." "That's impossible. Our shields can stop any primitive weapon." But the human weapons weren't primitive. They had been specifically designed to fight Vorthak technology based on detailed analysis of alien ships during the first attack. Every weakness had been studied and exploited. Captain Young-Soo's voice came over the communication system again, broadcasting on all Vorthak frequencies. "This message is for any species listening to this transmission. For 500,000 years, the Vorthak have terrorized the galaxy, destroying entire civilizations and bragging about their victories. Today that ends." Communications Officer Nari, working from the command center on Earth, made sure the message was being broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every alien species under Vorthak control would hear what happened next. "We are humanity," Young-Soo continued. "The species you thought you had destroyed. We survived. We learned. We prepared. And now we're going to show the galaxy what happens when you try to exterminate the human race." The battle was swift and devastating, but not in the way War Master Theclon had expected. His massive warships, designed to intimidate and overwhelm primitive species, were being torn apart by human weapons that struck with surgical precision. Minho's fighter squadron had destroyed 3 Vorthak destroyers in the first 5 minutes of battle. The alien ships were simply too slow to track the human fighters, and their shields were useless against weapons that had been designed specifically to penetrate them. "This is impossible!" Theklan screamed at his officers. "How can primitives defeat the Vorthak Empire?" His answer came from Commander Jae-sung, speaking from the bridge of an ancient human warship that had been hidden in space for 500,000 years. "Because we're not primitives. We're the children of the survivors you failed to kill." The ancient warship fired its main weapon, a beam of energy that had been perfected over centuries of preparation. It struck Theklan's flagship and cut through its armor like paper, destroying the ship's main reactor in a single shot. Across the battlefield, Vorthak ships were exploding or retreating in panic. The aliens had never faced an enemy that was prepared for them, that knew their tactics and had weapons designed to counter their technology. "All ships, retreat!" Theklan ordered from his damaged bridge. "Send a message to Fleet Command. The humans are not extinct. They have advanced technology and superior tactics." But only a few Vorthak ships managed to escape. The rest were destroyed, or disabled by human forces that had been planning this battle for 500,000 years. As the surviving alien ships fled the solar system, Captain Young-soo made one final transmission that Na-ri broadcast across the galaxy. "To every species that can hear this message, the Vorthak are not invincible. They can be defeated. They can be made to pay for their crimes. Humanity stands ready to help any species that wants to fight back against these murderers." War Master Theklan's damaged ship limped away from Earth, carrying news that would shake the Vorthak Empire to its core. The species they had bragged about destroying for 500,000 years had not only survived, but had become more dangerous than the Vorthak themselves. As the human fleet regrouped around Earth, Admiral Jin-ho smiled as he watched the alien ships disappear into the distance. "Send a message to all human colonies and stations," he ordered. "Tell them the first battle is over, and we won. But this is just the beginning." Commander Jae-sung stood beside him, tears in his eyes as he watched the victory his people had dreamed of for so long. "My ancestors would be proud," he said quietly. "The children of the survivors have finally come home." The news of the Vorthak defeat spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Diplomat Sang-min sat in his office on Earth, reading reports from dozens of alien species that had suddenly found the courage to contact humanity. "Admiral Jin-ho, you need to see this," Sang-min called across the diplomatic center. "We're receiving messages from civilizations that have been hiding from the Vorthak for thousands of years." Admiral Jin-ho came over to read the translated messages. Species after species was reaching out to humanity, asking for help, sharing information about Vorthak weaknesses, and offering to join an alliance against the empire that had terrorized them for so long. "The Kelrani civilization says they've been hiding in underground cities for 12,000 years, Sang-min read from one message. "The Zephyrians evacuated their entire planet and have been living on generation ships. The Teklar built hidden colonies in asteroid fields, just like our ancestors did." Dr. Yunsol, now serving as humanity's chief expert on alien languages, worked frantically to translate all the incoming messages. There are so many species, Admiral, hundreds of civilizations, that survived Vorthak attacks by hiding and waiting for someone strong enough to fight back. Admiral Jin Ho felt amazed and sad at the same time. All these species, living in fear for thousands of years, waiting for someone to stand up to the Vorthak. And now they have hope, Sang-min said, because humans proved the Vorthak can be beaten. The most important message came from a species called the Ashanti, who had been studying the Vorthak Empire for over 50,000 years. Their message was detailed and urgent. We have watched the Vorthak destroy 847 civilizations. We have mapped their territory, studied their technology, and learned their military structure. We offer this knowledge to humanity in exchange for leadership in the war against our common enemy. Dr. Yunsol translated their attached files, revealing information that made everyone realize how big this war was going to be. The Vorthak Empire controls over 10,000 star systems. They have millions of ships and billions of soldiers. The fleet that attacked Earth was just a tiny training group. Admiral Jin Ho studied the star chart showing Vorthak territory. It covered a huge section of the galaxy, with Earth right in the middle of it. No wonder they thought they owned our solar system. We've been living in the heart of their empire without knowing it. But there was good news, too. The Ashanti files showed that the Vorthak Empire wasn't as strong as it appeared. Most of their conquered species were held in line by fear, not loyalty. Their technology hadn't improved in hundreds of thousands of years because they thought they were already perfect. They're overconfident and stuck in the past, General Kyung-soo said after reading the reports. The same weaknesses that let us defeat their fleet at Earth. Sang-min had been working to organize all the alien species that wanted to fight the Vorthak. I'm proposing we create something called the Galactic Liberation Council, a formal alliance of all species that want to end Vorthak rule. Who would lead this council? Admiral Jin Ho asked. Humanity, Sang-min said simply. Every species that contacted us said the same thing. We're the first civilization to actually defeat the Vorthak in open battle. They want us to lead because we proved it's possible. Commander Jae-sung, who had been studying the alien intelligence reports, looked up from his computer. This is what my people dreamed of when they went into stasis. Not just human survival, but the liberation of the entire galaxy. Over the following months, alien ships began arriving at Earth. Not warships, but diplomatic vessels carrying representatives from dozens of species. They came to meet the humans who had done the impossible and to plan the war that would end Vorthak tyranny forever. The first Galactic Liberation Council meeting was held on Earth's moon, in a specially built facility that could accommodate the different environmental needs of various species. Sang-min served as the human representative, while Dr. Yunsol provided translation services. For too long, we have lived in fear, said the Kelrani representative, a tall, thin alien with blue skin and large eyes. Our children have never seen the surface of our homeworld because of Vorthak patrols. My people have forgotten what it means to live in peace. added the Zephyrian ambassador, whose species looked like humans, but with silver hair and golden eyes. We have spent so many generations running that we don't remember how to stay in one place. Species after species told similar stories. Entire civilizations living as refugees in their own galaxy, afraid to build anything permanent because the Vorthak might find them and destroy everything. Commander Jae Sung stood to address the council. I represent not just modern humanity, but the humans who survived the first Vorthak attack 500,000 years ago. My people spent centuries preparing for this war, and now we're ready to share everything we learned. He activated a holographic display showing detailed plans for weapons, ships, and tactics designed specifically to fight the Vorthak. These technologies are available to any species that joins our alliance. Together we can build a fleet that the Vorthak Empire cannot defeat. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Species that had been hiding for thousands of years suddenly had hope for the first time in their history. But the Vorthak weren't sitting still. Intelligence reports showed that the Empire was mobilizing massive fleets to crush the rebellion before it could spread. War Master Teclon, who had survived the battle at Earth, was now warning his superiors that humanity posed a serious threat. They have our exact fleet compositions and battle plans, Sang-min reported to Admiral Jin Ho. The Ashanti have been spying on them for decades. Good, Admiral Jin Ho said. Then we know exactly what's coming. The Vorthak response was predictable, but massive. They assembled the largest fleet in their history, over 10,000 warships, and began moving toward Earth and the other rebel worlds. But they made a critical mistake. They assumed that the other species would fight like they always had, with fear and desperation. They didn't realize that the aliens now had human weapons, human tactics, and most importantly, human determination. The final battle took place near the Vorthak homeworld itself. The Liberation Council fleet, led by Fleet Admiral Chang Wook and Commander Jae Sung, met the Vorthak Armada in the space around the planet where the Empire had been born. The battle lasted for 3 days, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Vorthak fought with the same tactics they had used for millions of years, while the Liberation Forces used strategies that had been developed by humans who had studied Vorthak weaknesses for 500,000 years. When it was over, the Vorthak Empire surrendered unconditionally. Their homeworld was surrounded by liberation ships. Their fleets were destroyed or scattered, and their leaders were captured to face trial for genocide. President Suho stood in the council chambers on Earth, reading the terms of the Vorthak, surrender to representatives from hundreds of liberated species. The Vorthak Empire is hereby dissolved. All conquered territories are to be returned to their original inhabitants. All Vorthak military leaders responsible for genocide will face trial before the Galactic Justice Council, but the most important part of the ceremony came when Commander Jae Sung activated a memorial hologram showing the names of every species the Vorthak had destroyed over the millions of years of their empire. The list was impossibly long, representing billions of lives lost to Vorthak cruelty. We cannot bring back the dead, Commander Jae Sung said to the assembled aliens. But we can make sure they are remembered, and we can make sure this never happens again. Dr. Miran, who had traveled from Earth to attend the ceremony, unveiled a memorial that would be built on the former Vorthak homeworld. The inscription was written in the languages of every species that had suffered under Vorthak rule. Here lies the proof that evil empires can fall, that survivors can become liberators, and that even 500,000 years of suffering can end when brave beings choose to fight back together. As the ceremony ended and representatives from hundreds of species began planning their journeys home to worlds they hadn't seen in thousands of years, Sang-min stood with Admiral Jin-ho looking out at the stars. "What do we do now?" Sang-min asked. "The war is over." Admiral Jin-ho smiled. "Now we do what humans have always done best. We explore, we learn, we help others, and we make sure that no species ever has to hide in fear again." In the months that followed, human ships spread out across the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as helpers. They brought technology to species that needed it, helped rebuild worlds that had been damaged by the Vorthak, and established trade routes between civilizations that had been isolated for millennia. The galaxy was finally free, and it had been liberated by the descendants of refugees who had refused to give up hope even after 500,000 years in hiding. The Vorthak had bragged about their conquest for 500,000 years. But in the end, the survivors had the last word.